Guys, welcome to Talk with Nick again. Today we have an interesting guest. Her name is Shivai, and I have met her during my internship in India in ICGB in 2016, 2015, and now she's doing her PhD from University of Florida, and I've also done her master's from United States. And it's quite interesting because I have met a lot of students who have done their studies from USA, but it's my first time taking the interview from the student who is in USA. So we'll get to know a lot about research, masters, and all the requisites that is required to complete your PhD or master program in United States. So Shivai, thank you so much for coming into this show. And
On mine.
yeah, all right. And how are you doing? All well?
I am good. So far, so good.
That's great. So my first question to you is that what is your basic background and how did you plan to do your masters in United States?
Okay, so by my background, I'm an engineer. So I got my BTech in biotechnology. I graduated 2015, and um, like sort of the process of getting into a master's program, I had my objectives clear since 2011. That is the year I joined my BTech.
Mhm.
Because I was sort of in the process of taking the SATs, the ACTs, etc. And in 2010, I had visited a couple of colleges in the United States. So I knew the field that I wanted to get into was specifically biotechnology. But um, I took another the decision that I took back in 2011 was to get a BTech in biotech from India itself. So I graduated from JP University of Information Technology in 2015. So in 2015 itself, I moved to Washington D.C. and I got an MS in biotech from Georgetown University. And the process of um, prepping for sort of your masters is, I would say, it's an ongoing process because there are four parts to what any school in the United States looks at. Um, and a lot of people give a lot of advice, but this is my personal experience, and this is what I think is important. So 25% is as weightage is given to every segment for your master's application. The first 25% is your GRE and your TOEFL score. The second 25% is your SOP or your statement of purpose. The next 25% is your letters of recommendation. And the final 25% is like extracurricular activities and basically your overall profile. So if they feel that you, for like regular schools, if you have like a good mix, and I would say if you clear more than 60% out of this 100% criteria, you will be able to get in. And of course, like the GRE scores for most universities, all the information is given online. Um, and you can choose based on your area of specialization where you want to get into. Um, the specific field, like people have different criterias. For me, geographical location was very important. That is primarily the reason why I picked Washington, D.C., because it was the seat of both the NIH and the FDA, which are the two primary funding agencies for most stuff in the United States. So I got through to Georgetown. It was a no-brainer. I said, okay, I'm going there. So,
Okay, that's
uh,
great.
yeah, I hope I
And
answered the question and I
yeah,
do
yeah,
have to share.
yeah. You answered my question, and that brings to my second question. Like a lot of students apply for the master's program in United States, but
Yeah.
then there are two major questions that a lot of students have been asking me about is mostly the fee structure and the scholarship. So in United States, what is the general fee structure of the universities? Plus, is there a possibility of winning scholarships for masters in Canada, masters in United States?
Mhm. Okay, so again, this is like a very personalized account, what I am telling you. Um, there are a couple of platforms that give you a lot of information about scholarships regarding master's programs, but primarily the ones that I have heard about are uh, is I think there's a scholarship that's called the Fulbright Scholarship that's run by the United States India Education Foundation, or UCF.
Hmm.
They have an office in Delhi, and I don't know the exact specifications of the deadlines. I think they change from year to year. But there's the Fellowship that's available for, I think, all disciplines, be it
Hmm.
humanities, be it all STEM programs. And then scholarships are also based on individual schools. So you can get a partial scholarship. I very rarely heard about somebody getting a full scholarship for any program in the United States. But yes, based on your individual merit, and if like the admissions committees feels that you are a good candidate for like a specialized program, they tend to give you in-house scholarships. The fee structure typically is like, again, top tier schools, that is the 8 Ivy Leagues in the United States, and places like Stanford, MIT, their fee structure is slightly higher as opposed to like other schools, like a good state schools. Um, but in general, like for a state school, the fee is credit based, and I think it should typically cost you between like 30 to 35 thousand dollars, which
Uh,
roughly translates into approximately um 30 to 40 lakh rupees. Like if you like, this is in INR, I'm giving you a rough conversion in INR. But again, like, this is a very generalized response for any master's program, that is an MS program, something that most Indian students or like most students come to do for STEM. MBAs are typically more expensive. They are going to be, the fee structure is going to be completely different for schools like basically Wharton, or like if you're getting an MBA from Yale. So there, the expense would typically, for 1 year, the tuition fee is just about 80 to 88 thousand dollars.
it's already two
So
and 2.5 times more than
yeah,
the general
then
state
a
schools.
general
Okay.
master's MS program. So like the fee structure, again, like you can go online and you can have like a more comprehensive evaluation of the fee structure of every single school. But this is like a very basic, broad, generalized idea for a master's in STEM, or like other humanities based fields also. Like I had a couple of friends who were at the School of Foreign Service, who was getting degrees in administrative services, who were on study leaves from India. And a couple of friends were getting degrees in economics um, and humanitarian studies. So they will have a slightly different fee structure.
All right. Um, that's very well said. And that brings to my next question. Like, once you have completed your master's, then students are looking for the jobs. So, what is the scenario for jobs? Uh, I would specifically ask you about the biotechnology and biology related fields. So, well, can you share a little bit about that?
Okay, so um, I can give you a politically correct answer, and then I can give you the real image. So if you're asking me for a politically correct answer, yes, if you are a student who's good enough and you have, you know, basically a stellar resume, and you do well on your interview, firstly, getting the interview is a process. But if all the boxes are checked, then yes, of course, you can land in great places, because this is a place that has great opportunities if you want to learn. And it's offered me at least a very wide wealth of resources, and even areas of flexibility that I never knew existed. Because for me, like when I was a student in India, um, the basic idea was, okay, biotech has like a couple of avenues, that there's medical biotechnology, there's something somewhat biomedical engineering, there's environmental biotechnology, and pretty much that was all that I all I was exposed to. But then when I finished my masters and I saw the other avenues that opened up, they were very different. So giving you context about my degree, I got an MS in biotechnology. That's a generalized field. I
Mhm.
finished in basically 9 months. That's 1 year. It was a 32 credit program, and in that I picked up additional credits from Georgetown's business school, and I got a specialized certification in MS Bio Business, which I never knew existed. Like this field, I never knew existed when I was in India. So that opened a lot of doors for me, because that specialized line of training gave me exposure to like different avenues that consisted of business development for the biotechnology industry,
Mhm.
regulatory affairs. Even in regulatory affairs, there was operations, there was regular management, and then there was medical writing. So these buckets that I'm broadly defining also have further specializations within them. And then even in the biotech industry that I had learned, there were different segments. So then there was R&D, then there was clinical development, and then there was taking the product, that is the vaccine or the drug that you've been working on, to commercialization, which had different jobs in itself. So again, if you're getting an MS in biotechnology in general, you can basically apply to any job within this pipeline as long as you have the correct um, skill set. And even if you don't have the correct skill set, if you are able to sell yourself well on paper, you can get through.
Okay.
So this was the politically correct answer and giving you a wide idea about the landscape. But in actuality, for at least somebody who's an international student, I'm not going to lie, finding a job is hard, and there are visa issues that come up. But I think that for at least for the biotech industry, the appreciation has increased after the COVID situation. So even if you look at the market these days, like the biotech industry is booming. So we have a lot of opportunities that have opened up, because the industry in general is investing more money, and that's why different more jobs are coming up basically.
Mhm.
So healthcare has become a priority. So finding a job again, it depends entirely on how well you are able to sell yourself. So I do understand that you need to have a very solid academic understanding of what you want to get into, but at the same time, this is something that nobody told me, that you are supposed to be honing your soft skills also, that is actively investing in your personality, so that you become a more agreeable person to work with in general. So work on your communication skills, work on just being up to date and reading as much as possible, because you need to know what is going on within your industry, within the biotechnology industry in general.
Thank you so much for giving this detailed and categorized and constructed answer. It's very well said. And do you have any work experience in USA?
Yes, I do. So post getting my degree in 2016, for 1 year I was a Fed. So I worked with the U.S. FDA. I was with CBER. That's the government loves abbreviations. I don't even remember the full form at this point. But the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. This could have changed, but it was CBER at that point. I worked with them for 4 years, for 1 year. It was a hybrid role of research and review. There was a big Zika scare that was out at that point in 2016. So the government threw money at the problem, which is typically the way they operate, at least in our industry. And that is how I got hired to work on a Zika project. So the hybrid was that I was reviewing documents for a couple of companies also, because the structure here is that any drug or vaccine that comes out needs to be continuously monitored and evaluated by the FDA. So
Okay.
I was partly involved with that too. And then the next year, 2017 and part of 2018, I worked for a company called Novavax. They've
Mhm.
been big on the news lately because they developed the COVID vaccine for a lot of developing countries. So I was on their formulation team for their respiratory syncytial virus vaccine.
That's great. That's great. And after working in two different kind of areas, then you move to PhD. And what was the thought in your mind that you have to do a PhD research? Because I think that they were kind of research-based jobs, but not like the research in the lab work, right?
Yes.
So then you have to move, and then you decided to move from government-based organization to pharmaceutical company, and then you move to a research lab. What was the story behind that thing?
Um, okay. So there were a lot of reasons for those hoops and turns that my career took. But um, the main stuff would be that I worked, and before that, like during the time span of my degree in Georgetown, we had to do an internship. I did my internship with a very small company that was based out of Silver Spring. So for
Mhm.
6 months, I was on their regulatory affairs and biobusiness team. So business development team. So I was pursuing my um, biobusiness side of the degree that I was doing at that point.
Mhm.
So, m- like my experience includes biobusiness, regulatory affairs, then moving into FDA and then commercial biotech. So, the reason why I wanted to get a PhD, I'll break down what you've asked me. So the reason why I wanted to get into a PhD in the first place is because I worked with so many teams and I worked with so many people, and the ones who actually knew stuff and were able to solve problems, at the drop of a hat, all of those people had PhDs. And I used to think that, okay, like I understand what basic research is, but I don't know what they are teaching in them in that specific degree, that they troubleshoot things so well. And the way they elucidate things used to be very different as compared to someone with just a master's degree. And I never understood that. Now I do.
Mhm.
Now I do because the training that they undergo is so rigorous that a PhD teaches you how to, systematically put things across and troubleshoot accordingly. Um, so why I got into this is because I didn't know enough.
Mhm.
I, from a 4 year program, BTech, which is analogous to basically a bachelor's in science, I got into a 1 year master's program, which was like a hybrid thing where I was doing biobusiness. I did not know enough science. So I made it was again a personalized decision that I wanted to know more, and I wanted that systematic approach of thinking, because whatever field I chose, I need to have a very clear understanding of the science that is going behind it. I need to be able to look at data and interpret it independently of biases that people write about of data. So that is the reason why I got into a PhD, and I wanted to get into hardcore science post all the hoops and turns.
That's really great. I also learned about more about the PhD process from you now. Like I'm also doing a PhD, but the way you are thinking is also very different, and the reason you picked up to do a PhD is also different as compared to the reason that I picked up to do my PhD, because I was just curious about studying algae. I
Yeah.
was not very curious about troubleshooting or like kind of this problem. I was just very curious to study this microalgae in an interdisciplinary approach. So that was my one of the reasons to pick up the PhD. Now I realize there are many other reasons that students go for PhD, and I'm very curious to find those people and find their reasons, So thank you very much.
Sure.
And now my another question is like when you do a PhD, you have to send a lot of documents, you have to apply for scholarships and fellowships. So did you apply to many universities and many scholarships, or you knew where you are going, and how did you prepare your all the application? Because USA is quite competitive, and I want to know how things work in USA for PhD.
Okay, so again, I'm going to be talking mainly about STEM programs,
Hmm.
and that too, biomedical sciences predominantly. The general structure is, again, for any PhD program, is that um, you have to submit again your GRE scores, your SOPs, your LORs, and basically your overall
Hmm.
profile. Um, and like a lot of, I would strongly recommend that for anybody who is applying to a PhD program, you absolutely need to know your funding source, because within the PhD program, like, you're there to learn, you are there to, you're basically a one man army for your project, because it's you who's predominantly working on something. And then, of course, you have help from your lab, from your advisor, from like other people, but you are predominantly responsible for your project. And like, it's supposed to be your baby. You look at things in a very different way once you get your project. And if you don't have that, then chances are in all likelihood that you're not going to either pursue the degree as passionately as you should. And even if you somehow get through, it's not going to be like, you won't be getting what you're supposed to get from that um, program in general. So, and of course, within the program there are a lot of other things that are going on. So you have like research proposals to submit, you have grants to write, you have papers to write, you have seminars to give. So it's like, when you have to manage all of this, you don't want the additional burden on yourself of um, constantly thinking that, okay, am I going to get paid, and how am I supposed to get paid? Of course, like, it isn't set in stone that you are going to have those problems set before you go in. But like, even if there is like somewhat an ambiguity of where you're going to get your money from, you sort of still need to have an idea
Hmm.
of how you're going to get funding for your project, basically. So regarding like um, rephrasing, like, the question that you want me to focus on.
Like you said, you need to be sure about how to get your funding, and you need to be very sure that your money is there for next 4 to 5 years to complete your PhD. So what are the major source of funding? Like is there money coming from the professor's grant, or you have to write an application to the university, or you have to write an application to the external organization to get the funding? How does the scholarship process work? So let's say if a student is applying from an international country,
Mhm.
should he directly email to the professor, or he should directly send an email to the university? And what kind of major scholarships are there for international students?
Okay. So um, okay, I'll break down all of this
Yeah.
and try to explain this as well as I can. So when you are as an international student, if you are applying to a university, uh, like especially for a PhD, if the professor is willing to take on a student and mentor a student, um, of course your mentor will have your back in terms of, or they will pull their weight in terms of getting you paid, because as it is, their minimalistic incentives in a PhD program, they want you to excel, and you know they want you to at least have what they promise you on paper. So if you are you like, international students can email professors, uh, there is a very high probability that the professor does not respond because they are very busy people. And there are multiple things. They are also juggling master students, PhD students. They are mentoring undergrads also sometimes. So please don't, like, this is for any international student, please don't get disheartened, because it's like, this happened with me too, that I've like emailed nearly half a university, like one of my dream schools, and they are absolutely not responding. So don't get disheartened. They are very busy people. They are already mentoring a lot of students. But um, in general, if they have the money, then they're going to let you know that yes, I have sufficient funds to bring you on. And if that is not the case, then there is always a point of contact within the university for a program. So you
Mhm.
can shoot an email to them and ask about the funding situation. That, does the university specific department have funds to support me? Or if not, what are the avenues that I can reach out to, that can provide me assistantship with. So in a lot of programs, what happens is that you basically earn your or make money off of like a TA ship or an RA ship on the side, where you become a teaching assistant or a research associate or a research assistant in a specific lab. And they pay you through that, because they have to justify on paper from where you are getting paid, because you are
Mhm.
providing a resource for that specific lab or that specific department. And again, the system, the way it works is that you do the research, the you publish a paper. That paper is good enough, you can get funding for more doing more work or doing more research in the field. So again, for biotech, especially for medical biotechnology, the primary funding source is the NIH. They usually give out grants to individualized PIs. PI means a principal investigator. Then, if a PI is well funded, then they can bring on as many PhD students as possible, depending on the grant money that they have, and then they can, fund you for the 3 to 5 years of or the duration of your program.
All right. And I'm hearing that there is a lot of hard work in doing a PhD in USA. And it's usually there is a lot of hard work, but I think in USA it's a little bit more tougher. That's what I'm getting. This is the vibe I'm getting it. So, like you said, that you are writing grants, and then there is TA, and then there is RA. I'm just curious to know how many hours do you work in a day or in a week now?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I was fortunate enough to get into a place where I don't have to TNRA.
Okay.
And I'm honestly very grateful um, that I don't have to TNRA. I did make that decision like voluntarily, because I knew that I was getting into a field that I originally knew very little about, because the most I had studied, so I'm getting a PhD in immunology, and I had a very, very basic understanding, like just a couple of undergrad courses in my undergrad degree of what it was. And yes, I had a lot of experience, but it was not um, like my training wasn't as vigorous as was needed before I was getting in. So I did have to put in some a certain level of extra work as compared to everybody else. But my typical day, again, it depends on like a variety of things. Your experiment fails, which this is a job
Mhm.
that has a 97% failure rate. So you need to have a very big heart when you walk in, that yes, this is supposed to fail.
Yeah.
Uh, and of course, like there is a rationale behind the way you design an experiment and the way you carry on with your day. But most of it is tends to fail. So my day typically ranges between 10 hours to 12 hours every day, and it's a mix of different things. I'm reading, I am writing, I am troubleshooting for an experiment, I am designing a different set of experiments, I am doing that experiment, I am writing a paper. I am prepping for some seminar um, somewhere. Either it is in my department, or it is in the College of Medicine itself, or it is externally. We're making posters, writing papers, prepping for oral presentations in different conferences also. So you're sort of juggling everything, and on top of that, you need to be. At least I think that you're supposed to be a subject matter expert or a SME
Hmm.
post you getting a PhD. So you need to allocate a certain amount of time in your day to reading and just staying up to date
All
with
right.
everything that comes out. So with doing all of this, it's typically a 10 to 12 hour day.
Yeah,
And yes, I don't have a life right now at all.
that's a crazy, crazy day. So you don't have time for your personal hobbies or things like that these days?
So the structure again in a 5 year program is that the first 2 years is um, you can come directly. Most international students come after a master's degree, but a lot of students come directly after their undergrad also.
Oh,
So, and the United States does offer that flexibility that directly after your 4 years of undergrad, you can apply for a PhD. And the typical time span of a PhD is 4 to 5 years. The first 2 years are basically supposed to bring you up to speed and till your qualifying exam. So typically, after 2 years, you're supposed to appear for your qualifying exam, which in case of biomedical science specifically, you are supposed to write and defend something that's called an F-31. That's a grant
mhm,
that an individual young PI writes. So I've also written that grant and defended it for my qualifying exam. And like again, the structure of the qualifying exam differs in different schools.
mhm,
In some places, they have a written exam and they have like an oral presentation. And honestly, the IVs can be very brutal with their qualifying exams. So
mhm.
it's like, okay, 4 hours you're locked in a room with your committee and like a chair who's presiding over it, and like they bombard you with questions. Uh, but like it can be lenient also, where in 1.5 to 2 hours your committee knows that okay, the candidate is on progress, they know what they're doing. You just ask them a bunch of questions and let them go. So to a post like 2 years into the program, after your qualifying exam, either you can master out before,
Mhm.
or you can choose to stay in the program, pass your qualifying exam, and then pursue the rest of your PhD. So again, if you feel that you don't have the stomach for it anymore, and after 2 years you want to get into industry, or take a lateral shift, like do something different, like you are given that option or given that choice. Most schools do
All
that.
right.
So this is the way it's designed. So post my qualifying exam, I have like more free time, I would say. I've become comfortable also with the idea. So I have somewhat of a life now, but before my calls it was
Okay, I
bad.
understand. Now I'm getting what when people used to say that PhD in USA is really competitive, really hard. Now I'm getting the complete understanding of it. Yeah, and so what's gonna happen after you complete your PhD? You want to go into industry, or you want to go into teaching, or you want to go into academic research? What's your vision after this?
Post my PhD, I will definitely not get a postdoc. I have decided this. But I am, of course, I do want to partly be in touch with my field. So right now I'm looking into consulting, specifically for biomedical science. And I'm also looking into, like, I envision myself to be like either a medical science liaison or like getting into bio business again.
All
Uh,
right, that's
so
uh, that's really
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm meeting a lot of PhD students who are doing a lot of research work, but are trying to go into different directions, either as scientific communicator or as a consultant. It's really cool. I have to explore it. And now, after my PhD, I'm trying to explore YouTube and trying to connect with a lot of researchers and scientists through this tool.
And that's really good. It's a really great tool and a great platform to interact with a lot of people and get the message across.
Yeah,
With
that's
good
yes,
research.
that's true because in last few days I could use Zoom and I could
Yeah,
connect with a lot of researchers and a lot of interesting students. So I think I'm looking forward to meet another set of good researchers, good businessmen,
yeah.
because anybody who is a Indian student or
With
any other from international country and exploring different avenues in abroad. So that's the goal of this channel, to connect with student community all across the world.
that is awesome.
Thank you so much, Shivai, for giving me your time. It was really nice, and you have given a very detailed and precise information about masters and PhD and funding. I didn't knew so many things that you shared. Thank you so much. It was really nice to have all those information with me.
Sure. If anybody has questions, I am. You can email me. I will send you my email. So I'd be happy to answer. I have crazy jam-packed days, but I promise whenever I get time, I will answer them to the best of my capability.
That's great.
Hope
That's really
you have.
great. Thank you so much.
Sure. Bye bye.
Bye bye.